Now, ladies and gentlemen, our first talk this evening, a startup talk, Safeguarding Biodiversity Through Satellite Imagery and AI, presented by Ms. Eloïse Charreyron, Customer Success Manager of AiDash. Eloïse Charreyron is a Customer Success Manager at AiDash, a software startup in the remote sensing analytics space. She focuses on the BNGAI product, which uses satellite imagery and AI for biodiversity management. Prior to this role, she worked in venture capital investing, advising ENGIE New Ventures, and in management consulting at Oliver Wyman. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Eloïse Charreyron.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for attending, and to the Global Safety Summit for the opportunity to speak at this super 2024 International Safety Award event. I'm happy I'm going first, so it minimizes the stage fright and I can get that part over with. But quick intro, my name is Eloïse Charreyron, and I work for AiDash, as previously mentioned. I'm going to be covering the first topic, that is trends in ESG. And rather than trying to scratch the surface of this very vast topic, what I propose doing is giving you a little bit of insight from a particular area that I'm quite intimately well-versed with through my AiDash work. So I'm going to zoom into the E of ESG, and within that E, specifically biodiversity. So I think everyone here is probably aware that we are in a global biodiversity crisis. And unfortunately, the UK is kind of center stage here in this crisis. Based off of the 2023 Nature report, the UK is actually one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. We only have 53% of the biodiversity that we should have. So I think our company at AiDash, we saw this issue and decided to launch one of our most recent products, which is called BNGAI. And this product is really inspired by a very ambitious regulation that the UK put forward called Biodiversity Net Gain. And this law, to me, is a perfect example of evolving regulatory frameworks and what this means for companies that need to adapt to these new realities. So what I'll do today is I will level set us on what is BNG, for those who don't perhaps work in the real estate or infrastructure sectors. I'll talk a little bit about our products and how we help stakeholders affected by this regulation. And then 3, I'll broaden out with some perspectives around the future place of biodiversity in ESG. So first off, with giving us a little bit of context on the BNG regulation. So what happened was this year, actually, the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, called DEFRA, here in the UK, enacted a very ambitious regulation with the goal being to ensure that wildlife is in a better place tomorrow than it is today prior to development. So what does that concretely mean? Essentially, developers must deliver a 10% uplift on the biodiversity value found on site prior to development. So that's what we call the baseline biodiversity. That's quite a bold objective, but one thing that I like to keep in mind is when your baseline is pretty bad to begin with, the 10% uplift is not that aggressive either. A couple things to note on the regulation is there's a proxy that's used to measure biodiversity, because this is quite a contentious topic. So they use habitat types and conditions rather than trying to measure each individual presence of different elements in the ecosystem. And then one other thing to keep in mind is the longevity of this regulation. So habitat enhancements have to be preserved for the 30 years after the development was initiated. So it's a long-term commitment. For those who are familiar with this, you will have already heard about how this is profoundly affecting the whole these important sectors. For those who are less familiar, I'll just say that it's a contentious regulation. Some grumble about, we're adding more red tape to slow down development. Others see it as a necessary framework to ensure that nature and development can work together to serve our communities. But what I can say with a lot of confidence is that the regulation in and of itself is quite avant-garde, and it's prompting real action. It's really changing the calculus around how people think about the land that we build on. So quickly now I'll move into the next section around our BNGAI product and how it's serving the stakeholders who are affected by this regulation. It's really a three-step process. So the first step, we help with our product produce the baseline assessment of the land. So really understanding what is it that you are working with, what is the value of this land that you're considering developing on. And how we do this, more specifically from a technological perspective, is we use commercial grade satellite imagery up to 5 centimeter image resolution, so pretty precise. And then we've developed some proprietary AI models which help essentially delineate different habitats and understand what condition they're likely in. So this is a good example, in my mind, of tech for good. The product also helps with this interactive planning. So a developer, for example, could play around in our platform and understand how different development scenarios will affect the biodiversity value of the land. So if you're going to build a couple buildings on this side, what's the deficit that you're going to create, and how can different strategies like improving the condition of an existing habitat help offset? So it really helps with that scenario planning. And then finally, that long-term play, our tool helps with the monitoring. So as you can imagine, satellite powered, we have this data-driven approach to essentially help all the developers provide uncontestable evidence of what is, and maybe in some cases not, being done. So we've been seeing a lot of interest so far. We launched the product in February of this year, and we've already assessed 100,000 hectares across 20,000 sites here in the UK. So there seems to be a bite, I should say. And then who benefits from this product? There are a lot of different stakeholders who are impacted, but I'll focus on 3 for today. 1, developers, 2, local planning authorities, and 3, ecologists. So developers, I work in customer success specifically, so I work closely with a lot of developers. And what I've been excited to see is really how developers are thinking about nature differently. So they're really integrating these concepts of biodiversity values into their ROI analyses when they're making decisions around what kinds of developments they're going to make. That's on the developer side, and we also help them streamline their compliance efforts as well. On the local planning authorities front, they're now going to have to receive and approve a lot of all these different submissions that are coming in. And as you can, for those who are kind of native to the UK, LPAs a lot of them are very resource constrained. So our goal is to help them with an efficient methodology to do that analysis of submissions. And then finally, ecologists. Our vision at AiDash is to be kind of the workflow management tool of choice for this profession, and really helping automate some of the manual, tedious tasks that are taking up a ton of their time today, and help them refocus their efforts on really where we need their judgment. So analyzing environmental risks, seeing if there's what is the actual condition of these different habitats. So that's it about the BNGAI product. And then a final word, to kind of broaden this back out to ESG trends. I think about it it feels like we're at a stage where it's not just about compliance. There's a lot of stakeholders who are trying to get ahead of the curve, and they're not looking at biodiversity just in terms of checking a box. We're already working with some clients who are trying to adhere, for example, to some corporate reporting standards that themselves are starting to integrate biodiversity more prominently in their ESG metrics. So to name a few in this alphabet soup, the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures addresses biodiversity. And then the one that feels very relevant this year is the European Union's Corporate Sustainability reporting directive. This directive has one standard that's very specifically focusing on biodiversity and ecosystems. And as early as this financial year, 49,000 large European companies are going to have to report on biodiversity action plans and targets. So clearly it's going to be top of mind to a lot of different corporations, just very close by in the EU. So I think it's interesting to see ultimately that biodiversity and nature is taking a bigger place ultimately in the E of ESG, whereas previously there was a lot of kind of narrow focus on climate change. We're now thinking about the E a little bit more broadly. So to close, as you've probably gleaned already, I'm personally a big nature enthusiast, and I believe both in the power of regulation and voluntary corporate standards in really driving change in the way that we interact with the environment. I'm excited to be able to do that day to day, work on protecting the environment through my work. And so if anyone here is interested in hearing a little bit more about AiDash, about our BNGAI product, I'll be here this evening, so feel free to come by and say hello. Thanks a lot.